शिव शिव शंभो शिव 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 शंभो शिव 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 शंभो शिव 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 शंभो महादेव शंभो महादेव शंभो महादेव शंभो महादेव शंभो शिव 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 शंभो हो शिव 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 शंभो शिव 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 शंभो शिव 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 शंभो महादेव शंभो महादेव शंभो महादेव शंभो महादेव शंभो महादेव शंभो महादेव शंभो शिव 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 शंभो शिव शिव शंभो शंकरा हर 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 महादेवरा 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 Shankara, Har 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 Mahadevara. Shiv Shiv Shambho Shankara, Har 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 Mahadevara. Shiv Shambho Shankara, Har 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 Mahadevara. Shiv Shiv Shambho Shankara, Har 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 Mahadevara. Shiv Shiv Shambho Shankara, Har 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 Mahadevara. Har 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 Mahadevara. Har 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 Mahadevara. सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः।
Welcome to Satsang. Now that there's a tiny little bit of room made by the boys who were playing, people can move into that space. Yeah, feel free to fill this up. Perfect. They'll give us a little bit of space there as people come in, then they don't have to step. Come, you can move up into this space. Come. Aye. Yeah. Wonderful. And feel free if more people come also to keep moving up and getting closer. It's okay, it's all good. Close is good. No problem. Yeah, it's fine, sweetie. Let's begin with a few minutes of meditation together. Even surrounded by people, allow your awareness and your focus to pull within. Allow the consciousness to pull from the sounds, the sights, the sensations of the world outside, into the world inside. Allow the awareness to be fully immersed in the breath. Don't count it or try to change it. Simply allow your attention to be fully immersed, merged into the breath. If thoughts come, don't try to fight them off, but don't allow them to hijack your attention. Just keep the awareness fully on the breath. Just keep bringing it back to the breath. As you exhale, from your next exhalation, allow yourself with each exhalation to let go. Exhale deeply and just let go. Let go of another role that you play. Let go of an identity you hold, a personality. Let go of an expectation, an attachment, a pain, a grudge, anything that identifies you. As you exhale, just exhale deeply and let it go into Mother Earth. Just give it into the Mother. Really feel yourself breathe it out. Another drama, another mask that you wear. Just breathe it all out and allow yourself after each exhalation, before the next inhalation, to just sink deeply into the core of yourself. As you exhale, just breathe it out and sink deeper and deeper into the core of the being. Letting go more and more with each exhalation, getting freer and freer of that which binds us, and sinking deeper and deeper into the truth of who we are. A place with no roles, no masks, no drama, no history or personality, just pure presence. Allow yourself to rest in that place of pure being. letting go and sinking deeper and deeper on each exhalation. Dropping into that place within ourselves of pure consciousness. Gently bring the palms of the hands together at chest level and rub them gently against each other. And press your palms into your closed eyes. Slowly open your eyes and lower your hands. Welcome again to Satsang. We'll begin as always with a question that's come in advance. And then I'll open it up to any questions that anyone here may have. I'm struggling to do and achieve what I really know is my purpose in life. I'm so worried about where the money will come from to support that purpose and to support me. What to do. A lot of people, almost everyone I know, struggles with that fear of who's going to take care of me and how am I going to take care of myself, and here's what I want to do, but where am I going to get the money? What if it doesn't work? What's going to happen? And so a lot of negative repercussions come from that. First of all, the fear itself, that awareness, is actually very good because it keeps us from being completely reckless. It keeps us from making not just wrong decisions, but impulsive decisions. Reckless decisions, decisions without any thought. That little bit of fear gives us a moment of stopping and thinking and really weighing pros and cons and planning. So don't feel badly for having that concern. That is the same concern that every species on earth, from the mosquito to the elephant and everything in between, has, which is, what's going to happen to me? There's no species on earth that wants to just let you take its life away. As anybody who's even tried to just kill a mosquito or an ant knows, it's going to do whatever it can do to protect itself. So that element of, I need to take care of myself, I need to protect myself, it's a very good instinct in the beginning, for a moment, to give us the ability to stop, to think, to take a breath or 10 or 100, to get advice, to weigh options. The dilemma comes when that fear becomes paralyzing. The dilemma comes when the fear actually becomes that which keeps us from doing exactly what we're supposed to do, because we are afraid of what's going to happen. And the dilemma with this is manifold. First of all, we end up not living the lives that we're supposed to live because we were afraid. So we end up living lives that other people have lived because we kind of know how that turns out, like we've seen other people do it. And it may not be what we're supposed to live, and it may not be quite as fulfilling as we'd like our lives to be, but at least it seems safe. At least it's known. I know where this train is going. But that's not what we took birth for. And there is a very beautiful place in between impulsivity and recklessness, which is on one end of the spectrum, not a place we're supposed to go, and paralysis on the other end of the spectrum, also not where we're supposed to go. And there's a very beautiful place in between, which is faith and courage. And the courage to also realize, well, this may not turn out. You know, in the Bhagavad Gita, when Lord Krishna is telling Arjuna to stand up and to fight this war. And the Gita, by the way, just in preface, since we have people from all over the world here, is a scripture, a teaching that so many Western philosophers have said is the core teaching for their lives. So this is not just a teaching of Indians or a teaching of Hinduism or a teaching of people who believe in Krishna. This is a teaching for all. And when Lord Krishna tells Arjuna to stand up and fight, he doesn't say at any time, and by the way, don't worry, because you're going to win, it's all going to work out. And that's really important, because when we think about having faith, a lot of us immediately jump to the conclusion, therefore what I want will happen. And so in life, when what we want doesn't happen, we lose our faith. I trusted in you, God. I had the courage. I took the chance. It didn't work out. Therefore, my faith was misplaced, as though somehow God's job was to make sure that everything that you started bore beautiful fruit, that everything you touched became a fabulous financial success, that you got all of the financial prosperity and acclaim and appreciation that you want. That's not the role that God plays. So it's important to realize, first of all, that having courage is not, I have courage that I know it's going to make $1 billion. I have courage that I know it's going to work. It may not. But that's not actually what's at stake, because what's at stake is your own development, your own growth, your own awareness of who you are, your own stepping into your purpose and your dharma. I think it was Thomas Edison who, before he finally got the light bulb and electricity and all of that to work, had, God knows, hundreds of failures. And somebody said to him something like, and I'm paraphrasing, but something like, my God, how did you stay committed with hundreds of failures? And he said something like, oh, those weren't failures. I discovered successfully hundreds of ways that don't work. But here's the key. The key is that the stress that comes, the fear that comes, is rooted in this idea that somehow I'm all in this alone. That if it doesn't work, I'm alone. And that everything is on my head, on my shoulders. I have to figure it all out. And that is the core tragedy. Because what that does is it pulls us away from the truth of life, which is God, divinity, consciousness, whatever name you use, it doesn't matter. But there is an intelligence in the universe. There is an energy in the universe that knows how to take a seed and turn it into an apple tree. You may think you're a fantastic gardener because what you plant grows. But ask yourself if you really have the ability to turn a seed into anything. Of course we don't. We have the ability to plant it in the soil. We have the ability to water it. But we have no idea actually what happens in that seed, how to make it work. How does it sprout? How does it blossom? How does it grow? We have no idea. And that's fine. Because luckily there's an intelligence in the universe that knows. Luckily it's not up to us. All we have to do is plant the seeds. We have no idea even how to make our own digestion work. When you go and have dinner, see whether if you bring all your awareness, all your attention, all your focus, all your brilliance, all your wisdom, all your skills to the job of digesting your dinner. We have no idea how to make that thing work. We know how to stick it in. If we've learned well, we know how to chew a lot before it goes down. And the rest is really just good faith. And when it doesn't work, again, we have nothing to do, no idea what to do other than to take different pills that different doctors we trust tell us to take. And again, it doesn't matter. We don't need to know that because there's an intelligence that knows. And being aware that there is an intelligence in the universe that knows why you took birth, that knows what your purpose is, that knows what you're supposed to become, the same intelligence that teaches a caterpillar how to become a butterfly. The caterpillar doesn't have to go to school or get a degree or read a manual, take a class, get a coach. Right? I mean, you never hear the, I don't know how to become a butterfly school of coaching for caterpillars. There's an intelligence that speaks to it through a signal. Somehow that caterpillar gets a signal, a sound, an instinct, something. Climbs the tree, weaves the cocoon. No one ever taught it how to do it. It's never seen it been done. But it knows. And so recognize that that same intelligence that makes seeds sprout, that makes caterpillars become butterflies, that same intelligence knows that that seed, what it's supposed to be. You could get a seed, you have no idea necessarily what it is. Unless it came in the package, you don't know what it is by looking at it. Apple tree, orange tree, pineapple tree. It's just a seed. But the intelligence in the seed knows what it's supposed to be. And in the same way, that intelligence knows exactly what your dharma is, what your karmic package is, what you're supposed to work out, the paths you're going to walk. All we have to do is walk them with courage, with an open heart, with faith, with commitment. There's a beautiful story of a little boy who's playing in the sandbox. Somehow out of the blue, in his sandbox has come this huge rock. And the boy is very upset because he's trying to make like a sand city. But there's this big rock in the middle of his sandbox. And his dad's watching him from the window above, and he sees this boy trying and trying to lift up the rock and get it out of his sandbox and can't get it. He keeps trying, nothing will work. Finally, the boy starts to cry. So the dad comes down and he says, son, what's the problem? The boy says, this rock and it's ruining my sandbox and I don't know what to do. And the dad says, well, have you used all your resources? The boy says, yes, I tried with my arms and I tried with my legs and I tried to do everything. Nothing worked. And the dad said, well, I'm also your resource. So did you call to me? Did you ask me to come down and help you? And of course, the dad leans down and picks up the rock and moves it out of the sandbox. And I love that story because in our lives, it reminds us, oh, wait, it's not actually all up to me. There is a resource I have, a connection with a power, an intelligence far greater than my own to help me as I move through my life, to remove the obstacles. And it may not remove the boulders in your sandbox. The obstacle may be that you have a problem with the boulder. So sometimes the obstacle it's going to remove is your ego, your own way of looking at something. But we have that connection with the divine, and that's the power of faith. It's, oh yeah, I know this is my purpose. I know this is my dharma. There seem to be the obstacles. Can you imagine if a caterpillar roamed around on the floor saying, I know I'm supposed to be one of those flying butterflies up there, but nothing I do is working. I jump, I cannot fly. Little does it know that just its time hasn't quite come, and the moment that time comes, it's going to know exactly what to do. But along the way, it gets liquefied. Sitting in that cocoon, that caterpillar literally becomes pretty much liquefied before it becomes the butterfly. And what that means is that we have to permit the structures of the self to be dissolved when we put our hands, when we put ourselves in the divine's hands. And this is where, when we do the meditation of letting go, in order to be able to really walk that purpose, that dharma, we have to be prepared to let go of the structures I have that say I can't. I'm not smart enough, I'm not rich enough, I'm not old enough, I'm not young enough, I'm not this enough or that enough. We have to allow those to be dismantled and liquefied. And that's what our spiritual practice gives us. So stand up, move forward with faith, knowing that there's an intelligence that's working for you and with you to fulfill that dharma. And it may not always be success in the way that you think success is. It may not always be fun. It may not always be enjoyable. It may not always be romantic and extravagant, like being liquefied in a cocoon. But we have the faith to know that those times are also part of the divine plan. So before taking any of the other questions that came in advance, I'm happy to open it up to any questions that anyone here may have. Yes, one, and then two. Actually, you didn't raise your hand. Yes. Yes.
Mataji, Jai Shri Krishna.
Jai Shri Krishna.
I would like to know the simplest way to accept the dire realities of the life. Sometimes it is confusing, sometimes it has a reference to context, and sometimes it is relatively impossible.
So how do we accept the dire realities of life? Well, the first question is, do you have a choice? And this, we laugh, but think for a moment how many things you are holding on to in your mind that you don't accept, the lack of acceptance of which is simply harming you. Lack of acceptance does not, tragically, change the universe. Doesn't even change the people around us. As anyone who's been in a relationship, a marriage, children, parents, colleagues, neighbors, we know. How many things about the people in our life do we not accept? And we fight constantly. Our lack of acceptance doesn't even change the behavior of the people around us. You think it's going to change the universe? All it does is it changes our own mental state from being one of peace to being lack of peace. So the first way to accept is really honestly to realize my only other option is misery. It's not a choice of accept this reality or take what's behind door number 2 instead. We don't get that option. It's only one reality, here it is. Accept it, face it, or suffer. Those are the only 2 choices. Now, of course, we can create a new reality for tomorrow, next week, next month. If my current reality is one that I don't accept, well, be an active co-creator participant. There are some things that are changeable, some things that aren't changeable. There's that beautiful prayer, right, that says, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So, if I can change something, give me the courage to change it. If I can't change it, give me the serenity to accept it. Now, here's what's also important. Acceptance does not mean I have to like it. A lot of us get really stuck there because there's things in life that are difficult or hard. As I mentioned in our Arti, we're having this beautiful round table today and tomorrow about dealing with alcoholism and drug addiction. And anybody who has had a family member or a close friend struggle with drug addiction or alcoholism knows how difficult that is. How much you want to change that person, how much you want to get them to stop. Accepting feels like defeat. It feels like I've given up. And so it's important to realize that when we say accept, it doesn't mean give up. It doesn't mean you have to say, okay, I'm going to learn to like this. What it simply means is recognize, do I actually have the ability to change this situation or not? And if not, then at least I can change how I am relating to it in my own mind. If I can't change the outside, all I can change is the inside. So the dire reality of life, the most dire reality of life is we're all dying. Doesn't get any more dire than that.
Satya.
We are all dying, that is the truth. And yet, that which causes so much stress in life is done with this illusion of somehow I'm living forever. I am this body, whether it's my attachment to how much money I make, my attachment to my name, my fame, all of it is done in this absolute refusal to acknowledge the fact that I'm dying. that this body is not the actual ultimate reality, that all of this is a very temporary, very beautiful, but very temporary drama of time and space. That's the reality so many of us spend our entire lives running from. Wrinkle injections, all kinds of things. When I was back in America this time, every time I go back, but especially this past time, I was just noticing everywhere you go. Anti-aging clinic, age-defying this, age-defying that. No. We're all dying. Your hair can be whatever color you want. You can inject your face with whatever you want, and other parts of your body with whatever you want. Doesn't change the fact that we're dying. And I mention that because the minute that you really accept that, the rest of the dire realities actually become much easier to accept. The stuff that we can't change becomes easier to accept. But it's also very important for us to realize there is a lot that we can change. And we may not be able to change it in its entirety, but that we can have a really big ripple impact over. And a lot of times we feel very hopeless and helpless, and we think on a spiritual level, ironically, that somehow acceptance of it is our highest spiritual goal. So climate change, wars, violence, destruction of our rainforest, oppression of women, these societal evils that are going on all over the place. Tragically, on spiritual levels, a lot of people think, oh, okay, so my highest goal is I need to learn how to accept these things so that I can find peace with them. And I have a lot of people say, how can I find peace and acceptance in the midst of all of this that's going on? And the truth is, that's not the highest calling. The highest calling is to figure out what is your role in addressing that. The highest calling is not, how can I find peace in the midst of other suffering? The highest calling is, how can I be a vessel, a vehicle for the divine flow such that I may alleviate others' suffering? If not all of them, at least those I'm able to touch, to the extent that I'm able to. And our spiritual practice becomes a crucial, essential element, not of giving me enough peace that I'm unaffected when the guy in front of me trips and falls, and so I don't feel the need to bend down and help him up, or that I can walk by people who are suffering and not feel something, but rather it gives me the spiritual grounding such that I can actually be a tool, an instrument, an agent of change without it being about my ego. Without it being about my name, who's going to get credit, who's going to appreciate me, is it going to be done my way or your way, under my name or your name, my logo or your logo. The spiritual practice enables me to actually be enough in tune with the flow of the universe that, like the caterpillar, I understand what needs to be done. Otherwise, if I'm not grounded, not anchored, not clear, we run around like chickens with our heads cut off, anxious, upset, not accepting, wanting to work here, wanting to do this, wanting to do that, and our energy is great and our intention is great. But we're virtually useless as far as actual impact goes. And so we meditate. We embark on the spiritual path to find that place of peace within ourselves, of truth within ourselves, that aligns us with knowing, this is how I need to flow in this moment. Because it keeps changing. In one moment you may be called upon to serve in one way, in another moment called upon to serve in another way, an hour later called upon to serve in a different way. But being these clear vessels for the divine will to flow, knowing how to serve, how to help. And so we meditate, we pray to accept that which we can't change, and to have the courage and the clarity and the ability to change what we can. And of course for that wisdom, that gyan, to know the difference.
Jai Shri Krishna.
Jai Shri Krishna. Yes.
In Gita, chapter 6, below verse number 30, it is said that God is present in each and every particle.
Yes.
Some people argue there cannot be more than one God.
Great question.
God be gods.
Great question. Okay. So in the Bhagavad Gita, and also in so many of the scriptures, in the Upanishads, in the Vedas, the scriptures are filled with different ways of reminding us that everyone and everything in the universe is pervaded by the divine. So he said, well, so how is that possible? If there's only one God, how can everyone be God? So it's a beautiful question, because a lot of people misunderstand Hinduism as a polytheistic religion, that we believe in many gods. Then those who understand a little better say, no, we only believe, or they only believe in one God with many forms. But actually, the highest truth is, what we really believe is, there's nothing but God. And so it's like saying, imagine you have the ocean. How many waves are possible on the ocean? Well, if the ocean were actually infinite, which would make this metaphor perfect, if the ocean were infinite, there would be an infinite number of waves that the ocean could have. Some small, some large. If the ocean were infinite, then there's an infinite number of waves it can have. In the same way, if there is nothing but God, everyone, everything is, you can think of it as a wave of that ocean. If you take a spoon or a cup or a dropper of water from a wave, so you go out on a boat, you go into the ocean, you find a big wave, you take a cup of water from the wave, you go back into your laboratory, you put that water under a microscope, and you say to the technician, what is this? He'll tell you what? Ocean. He's going to look at that and he's going to say, ocean. He's not going to say wave. Ocean. The highest truth of every wave is ocean. Yes, at that moment, there is also, simultaneous to the permanent truth of ocean, there is a temporary truth at an intersection of time and space that we call wave. But the highest truth, the permanent truth, is ocean. In the same way, each of us, at this intersection of time and space, there is a temporary truth that says, male, that this age, this name, this culture, this body, this height, this weight, this story. Female, this height, this weight, this story, this age. But ultimately, our real truth is divinity. like the real truth of the wave is divinity, is ocean. And that's why when we go within ourselves, when we talk about our soul, spirit, consciousness, whatever word you use, it's divinity. We don't have to wait till we die. It's not about dying and going back to divinity. The wave does not have to stop being a wave in order to start being ocean again. Even while it's a wave, it's still ocean. It just happens to be ocean that at this moment is having that form. In the same way, we don't have to die to go back to being soul or God. We just have to recognize that this body, this story, this identity, this drama is the temporary form that we've taken of the permanent truth, which is God. And there's two extraordinary outcomes of that. The first, of course, is enlightenment. Right? Doesn't get any better than that. Thich Nhat Hanh, the beautiful, beautiful Buddhist sage monk, said, enlightenment is when the wave realizes its ocean. So when we realize that about ourselves, on not just an intellectual level, but the real deep level, you call that awakening, enlightenment, whatever word we use. But there's another beautiful benefit for the world, which is when you realize that about yourself, you also realize that about the rest of the world. So it's not, oh, my highest truth is God, but your highest truth is waveform. The minute I realize that this wave's highest truth is ocean, well, I simultaneously realize, well, that's true about every wave. I don't have to relearn it about every wave. In the same way, the minute I realize it about myself, I realize it about others. Which means that the way I move through the world changes drastically. I'm no longer interacting with individual dramas, stories, bodies, pocketbooks, bank accounts, titles, masks, roles. I'm interacting with divinity. And this is where our scriptures remind us over and over again. Tread lightly. Take only what you need. This does not belong to you. This earth is divine. This earth is God. This is not yours to use and abuse and discard. Tread lightly with those you interact with. They are the divine in different forms. So first have the awareness of the self. And then you realize that that then transforms how you interact with the world. So when you realize nothing but God, then even as our population explodes and explodes and explodes, well, since that ocean is infinite, an infinite number of waves, but all one. Ultimately just one ocean. Yes, last question.
Okay. Help me understand moksha. Is it same as enlightenment?
Okay, great. So is moksha the same as enlightenment? Now, those of you who come to satsang a lot or who watch it online a lot know that one of the things I try to avoid is getting into semantic debates. And the reason being, first of all, that there's a great handicap in translating Sanskrit into English. So this always comes up. when you take Sanskrit terms and you bring them into English, and of course that's only in English, when you deal with French and Spanish and Portuguese and German, I mean, you've got how many different possible permutations and mistakes people are going to make in translation. But the other reason is that simply the academic semantic understanding of the difference between this word and that word does not actually change anything in my life. So we'll take your question, but I'm going to try to take it into a little bit of a deeper experiential way rather than just if you had to write a report on moksha versus if you had to write a report on enlightenment. So moksha is translated loosely as liberation, freedom. Now, typically it gets used when we speak about that which happens after we die. So people talk about, I'm going to die and attain moksha, as in freedom from the body. And we speak about this also when we talk about the cycle of reincarnation, birth and death, that we keep coming back in the body, working out our karmic bank accounts until finally our karmic bank account is clear and we no longer need to be reincarnated and we attain moksha, liberation. But the truth is, it's not the body that's the jail. Sometimes the body's in pain, sure. We get accidents, we get illnesses, we get ailments. But it's not the body that keeps us stuck. It's the mind that keeps us stuck. It's the ego. It's the attachments, it's the expectations, it's the grudges, it's the competition, it's the jealousy, it's the desires. That's what keeps us stuck. And so real moksha is not about freedom from the body. Because the way that the cycle of reincarnation works is if you don't attain moksha, in this body, before you drop it, you're just going to keep coming back. You're going to get another one. So you've got to work it out in the body. And the beautiful thing then is, then you realize, the body is actually this incredibly beautiful gift I've been given. Sunsets are gorgeous. Flowers are gorgeous. A hot cup of tea on a cold morning is gorgeous. Looking into the eyes of a loved one is gorgeous. Listening to Pujya Swamiji sing the arti is gorgeous, right? I mean, these are things of the senses. If we didn't have ears or eyes or taste buds, we couldn't enjoy any of these things. So the body becomes this incredible vehicle we've been given to interact with the exquisiteness of the universe. And that's when we get what's called jiva mukti. Mukti is another word for moksha, freedom. But while you're living in the body. So then in that case, sure, maybe after you die, you don't need to take another body, but you're no longer waiting for death. You understand eventually it's going to come. But until it comes, let me use this beautiful vehicle I've been given to interact with the universe in this extraordinary way of love, of appreciation, of service. How can I use my body? I've got hands, I've got feet, I've got intelligence. I've got a mouth, I've got a brain, I mean, I've got so much I can use to be of service. So then the body becomes this tool. So that's moksha. Enlightenment, you can use them interchangeably. Enlightenment tends to usually not so much be referred to as something you get after death. People tend not to talk so much about, I will die, then I will be enlightened, the way they say, I will die, then I will have moksha. People tend to understand that enlightenment requires you to be conscious of your consciousness. This is why we are taught that humans are actually the pinnacle of not just physical but spiritual evolution. Otherwise, if you look at nature, nature actually acts much more nicely than we do. We are the only creature that harms just for the sake of harming. We kill not to eat each other, not because we're starving, not because the other one's threatening us. We kill people who take our parking space. Seriously. We kill people for all kinds of reasons that have nothing to do with I'm hungry or threatened. So there's a lot of species that may seem to be higher on the spiritual evolution pole than we are. But the reason that we're told that human life is the highest is because it's believed to be the only life that is capable of looking at itself, being conscious of being conscious. Which means that it's the only species that can sit and meditate on my consciousness, that can say, who am I? I feel hunger, but I'm not my hunger. I feel anger, I'm not my anger. I feel cold, I'm not my body. I have a body, I'm not the body. I have a thought, I'm not my thought. That ability to be conscious of the workings of myself is a requirement for enlightenment. I can't get free of the darkness until I realize there is darkness. And the only way to realize there is darkness is to have the ability to step out of it and to say, oh yeah, that's ignorance. To watch myself getting angry, getting jealous, getting hurt, desiring, holding, grabbing, yearning, fearing. And to be able to step back and watch that and to say, not me, not me, not me. And then ultimately to be able to find the ability to sit in what is me. The minute I can remove that which is not me out of the way. But that process requires a functioning cerebral cortex, you could say. Highly functioning. And so for that, it's believed that humans are the only ones who can attain that. So that is a practice that leads to enlightenment, which also leads to moksha. In the body, they're the same. When you have enlightenment, when you live in the light instead of in the darkness, you're free. You're free of the darkness of the ignorance that keeps you stuck. Therefore, you are liberated. Wonderful. Have a beautiful rest of your evening. And if we didn't get to your question tonight, I apologize. We will